The New Testament reading is from John 1, verses 43 through 51, and it can be found on page 92 in the New Testament section of your Pew Bible. The next day, Jesus decided to go to Galilee. He found Philip and said to him, "Follow me." Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. And Philip found Nathanael and said to him, "We have found him about whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote, Jesus, son of Joseph from Nazareth." Nathanael said to him, "Can anything good come out of Nazareth?" Philip said to him, "Come and see." When Jesus saw Nathanael coming toward him, he said of him, "Here is truly an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." Nathanael asked him, "Where did you get to know me?" Jesus answered, "I saw you under the fig tree before Philip called you." Nathanael replied, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Jesus answered, "Do you believe because I told you that I saw you under the fig tree? You will see greater things than these." And he said to him, "Very truly, I tell you, you will see heaven open and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man." The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. Thank you, Ruth, for reading to us today. Greatly appreciate that. I wonder if this has ever happened to you. You turn on your computer, your desktop, or your laptop, expecting it to power up, yes, like normal. As you wait for the startup file, we used to call it in the old days a batch file, to go through its routine, you notice that something isn't exactly right. It's taking longer to get to your desktop, your browser, than usual. After a few agonizing minutes, which in computer time, digital time, may as well be years, you realize that something is very wrong. The computer, for whatever reason, has lost its ability to start up. The worst time that ever happened to me was when I worked as an interim in Worthington, Ohio. And as a result of that happening to me, all of my documents, all of my bookmarks, all of my emails from 30 years of ministry just disappeared, as if they never existed, and I never got them back. And I still grieve about it. Of course, I could have backed up my files on another drive. Or even better, I could have sent a copy of my hard drive into the cloud, where it would be forever available to me. No matter the hardware, no matter the time, no matter the place. The point of this story is this. In our digital lives, it is better for us to keep what we value in many places rather than just one place, because one place can quickly become no place when things go wrong. The same can be said for our spiritual lives as well. As ancient Israel learned time and time again with the sacred places that they built. The evolution of Israel's temple-centered religion goes back much further than the first temple, the temple that Solomon built. The idea of a sacred place for God, a singular place, was rooted in stories like the one we heard from the book of Genesis, where we see the dream of Jacob's ladder. Then Jacob woke from his sleep and said, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it." And he was afraid and said, "How awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. The site of Jacob's dream became known as Bethel. Bethel in Hebrew, house of God. And it was the first of ancient Israel's sacred places. Religion is filled with sacred places, isn't it? I mean, they're all over the place. And to transform a sacred space can have, or try to change a sacred space, can have dangerous, even violent consequences, as we have seen throughout history. That's the power of sacred spaces. We fight over them. We fight over them. And when we do that in Christianity, which sadly we often do, it transforms our worship into idolatry. Do you recall the charge against Jesus for which he was arrested, tried, and crucified by the religious leaders of Jerusalem? Do you remember the charge? Preaching in the temple, Jesus said, "Destroy this temple, this sacred space." And he didn't say that, but destroy this temple. And in 3 days, I will raise it up. Jesus knew that the true heart of Israel's religion was never ingrained in stone or in wood or in any of the appointments of the temple or in any sacred space, but in the one whom God sent to redeem all of God's people, in all places and for all time. Jesus taught this not just as he neared his crucifixion, but from the very beginning, the very start of his messianic task. And we see this in John when he encountered a man named Nathanael. In the very first few days of Jesus' work, Jesus invited Peter, Andrew, then Philip to follow him. Philip, fully convinced that Jesus was the promised Messiah of Israel, responded to Jesus' invitation with great enthusiasm. Philip subsequently went to Nathanael. We don't know much about Nathanael, but probably he was either a friend, a priest, or someone who Philip respected. Certainly, he was a scholar. He knew his people's religious text. He knew them. And Philip said to him that he had found him about whom Moses in the law and also the prophets wrote. Jesus, and then he said these words, of Nazareth. Of Nazareth. That's important. But Nathanael, who had yet to meet Jesus, immediately disputed Philip's claim based on nothing more than the place where Jesus was from. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? Now, why did Nathanael ask that question or say that? It wasn't because Nazareth had a bad reputation. It was the bad side of Judea. It wasn't. Nathanael knew that name Nazareth did not appear in the prophets or the law. Therefore, Nazareth was not the sacred place from which the Messiah could emerge. He knew that. Jesus of Nazareth was from the wrong space, the wrong place. Interestingly, though, out of curiosity, or perhaps to clearly disprove Philip's claim, Nathanael accepts Philip's invitation to come and meet him. As Nathanael approached Jesus, Jesus said, "Here is truly an Israelite in whom there is no deceit." In the Hebrew Scriptures, and remember, Nathanael knows his Scriptures. In the Hebrew Scriptures, God's prophets exhibited remarkable gifts of perception. Not just of a person's character, but where that person had been and what that person was doing. Jesus also told Nathanael, "I saw you under a fig tree." Nathanael was so impressed with Jesus' observations that he spoke literally before he understood what he was saying. He had yet to learn what Jesus was really about. "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Now, why did Nathanael say that? For Nathanael, the Messiah would be the eternal King of Israel who would rule from the temple, guarding that sacred space eternally. It was from that assumption that Nathanael proclaimed Jesus as the long-expected King of Israel. Jesus replied with an image from the Hebrew Scriptures that Nathanael certainly would have known. "Very truly I tell you, Nathanael, you will see heaven opened and the angels of God ascending and descending upon the Son of Man." Now, Nathanael would have associated this image from Genesis with his understanding of the Messiah as the one who would sit on the physical throne in the temple. From there, according to the beliefs at that time about the Messiah would deliver the judgments of God spoken to him from heaven to earth through God's messengers, which is what angels are. But Jesus didn't mean that when he said that to Nathanael. What he meant is that he had come to be Jacob's ladder himself, to be the divine bridge between God and the world. Jesus spoke to this not long afterwards when he was teaching. This was later in John's Gospel, when he said that he was the way, the truth, and the life. Which meant through him, God would reside in us. Through him, we could find a sacred space in our hearts that would transcend the world. And at the end of John's Gospel, as Jesus approached the cross, Christ meant exactly the same thing when he pointed to the Jerusalem temple and said, "Destroy this temple, and in 3 days I will raise it up." Israel had worshiped God in sacred places, sacred spaces. Yet those sacred spaces had been constantly fought over and destroyed and rebuilt and destroyed again. Just like the temples of the Romans and the Greeks, Israel had centered its religious life not on the God they worshiped, but on the place where that worship was happening. Yet, we know, only a few decades after Jesus' words, Israel's magnificent temple would be torn down to its foundation, and today all that remains are a few stones from the original foundation. That's all. But on the third day, the Son of God created a new Bethel, one which the Apostle Paul described as a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. Have you ever wondered why traditional Christianity, why Christianity never built a central temple for all the Christians in the world? That is because Christianity rejects the idea that God can be located or Christ can be located only in one central place, and that you got to go to that place to meet God. We do not build temples, but what we do build are Bethels, houses, where we gather to become the people Christ wants us to be, doing the work Christ wants us to do. So, what does it mean for us to say that God is in the church? For us, God is only in the church when we are in the church. When nobody's in the church, it's an empty building. When we are here, God is here. And when we leave, God goes with us. Christ showed us, and Christ taught us that the heart is the only sacred space, the only one in which God truly lives. If we are to see God, if we are to hear God, if we are to touch or feel God, it can only happen when we open our hearts to the Holy Spirit. It can only happen when we bind our lives together and do the work of the kingdom to which Christ has called us. As the people of God, our sacred space is, as Hemingway described it, a movable feast. A movable feast. One which we take into the world to feed those who are hungry in body and in mind and in spirit. Jacob's ladder was not a dream. Jacob's ladder was not a vision. Jacob's ladder was not a building. Jacob's ladder was a cross. A cross. Upon that cross, a way was opened to humanity that will never be closed. It was a way not built of wood, not built of stone, but a gateway of love, a gateway of faith, a gateway of forgiveness. When you and I leave here today, God goes with us. Whenever we go through pain or fear or sin, God goes with us into those places with the promise that just as the Father is always with us, we are always with the Father. Always. Sacred space, whether it has a geographical location or whether it is a space within our own experience, has special power. It has the ability to move us forward. It holds a call to us toward transcendence. It is a space where transformation becomes possible. That is hope. That is hope. Is Christ transforming us this morning? Are we open to letting Him create a sacred space with our lives? A place where those around us will feel the presence of God, just like I said to the kids. Remember what I said a few moments ago. It's better for us to keep what we value in many places rather than just one place. And what is of more value to us than our love for Jesus Christ? It is our wealth. And as Jesus taught us, our wealth is to be shared. Wherever we go, God goes with us. Amen.